And before proceeding this, it's my pleasure. This is Dr. Chand Kishore from Dehradun subchapter. I thanks to ISRE Delhi chapter as a mentor and guiding us at time to time and providing such type of webinars. So I am thankful to ISRE Delhi chapter. On behalf of Delhi chapter and Dehradun subchapter, this is Dr. Chand Kishore. Welcome you all for attending this webinar, and I welcome our guest or lecturer or Dr. Professor Akhilesh Arora ji. I give little bit brief about Dr. Akhilesh Arora ji so that you can understand the importance of this vapor absorption system. He will give you all the details, but I give little bit about Akhilesh Arora ji. Dr. Akhilesh Arora is working as an associate professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Delhi Technical University, erstwhile Delhi College of Engineering, Delhi, since 2004. Prior to joining Delhi College of Engineering, he worked at College of Military Engineering, Pune, in the capacity of lecturer for 2 years. He also served as associate professor and head of the Mechanical and Automation Engineering Department at Indira Gandhi Technical University of Women, Delhi, during the period for 2012 to 2014. He obtained his master's and PhD degree from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, in the year 1997 and 2010, respectively. His research areas are refrigeration and air conditioning, thermal engineering, energy conservation, and waste heat recovery. He has published number of research papers in national and international journals. He has also authored book titled Alternative in Refrigeration and Air Conditioning, published by IK International Publishing House, Private Limited, Delhi. He has guided 5 PhD students. This is a little bit, but it's a lot to learn from Dr. Akhilesh Arora ji. So welcome, Dr. Professor Akhilesh Arora ji. So now over to you, sir. Please take over the thing and guide us for this vapor absorption system.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra Kishore ji. First of all, I would like to ask you whether I am audible or not.
You are audible, sir.
Okay. So I would also like to thank.
This is the one thing we learned from before starting. We must ask. I haven't asked anything to anyone, but
Yeah.
It's good, sir. So please.
So usually because nowadays I am taking online classes, so this is my first question. I asked from the students whether I am audible or not.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Chandra Kishore ji, who
My
is
pleasure,
looking after Dehradun subchapter under the Delhi ISRE chapter.
Our President Ankit Rathod ji.
Okay, so president, he is president from this ISRE Dehradun chapter. So the time which was allotted to me is actually 1.5 hours from 6:30 to 8 actually. So already we are late by 15 minutes because I have prepared accordingly.
Right.
So let us I will start it now. Okay, so I will
Right, sir, right.
share my screen.
Sir. No, welcome, sir. Welcome, sir.
Okay. So is the screen visible to you?
Sir, visible.
Okay, all right. So as you know, the topic of presentation is vapor absorption refrigeration system. Dr. Chandra Prakash ji has given my introduction also. I would like to add only one more thing into it. My email ID, phone number are also given, and I am also now holding a YouTube channel. Basically, what I am doing is I am uploading the lecture classes, which nowadays I am taking actually. Okay, so it is for the benefit of the students. They can go to the channel and they can see the lectures on refrigeration and air conditioning. Some lectures are also on thermodynamics also. Okay, so this is the outline, introduction, VCR system and challenges, vapor absorption system and advantages, single effect vapor absorption system, double effect vapor absorption system, triple effect vapor absorption system, half effect vapor absorption system. Uh, just a minute. Hybrid vapor compression and absorption systems, gas absorption system, hybrid gas absorption system. So it's a exhaustive preparation from my side. So let me see how much I can cover. Initially, there are certain things which are based on very basics of the vapor absorption system, and slowly I will go into the depth of the topic actually. So initially, you will find that you know few things actually. Okay. Introduction. So first of all, I would like to talk about the vapor compression refrigeration system, in which the refrigerant undergoes phase changes and is one of the many refrigeration cycles and is most widely used method for air conditioning of buildings and automobiles. It is also used in domestic and commercial refrigerators, large-scale warehouses for chilled or frozen storage of foods and meats, refrigerated trucks, railroad cars, and a host of other commercial and industrial services. And here you can see the diagram also for the vapor compression system. You know the components. It's a very simple: evaporator, compressor, condenser, and expansion device. These are the components of a vapor compression system. And the main thing is the refrigerant, which plays the most important role, which is being circulated in the cycle and which is producing the refrigerating effect. So I would like to tell you what are the challenges with the refrigerant actually. Initially, we started using CFCs which were having high ODP. ODP stands for ozone depletion potential, and the initial refrigerants were R11 and R12. And you can see in the bracket here that the values of ODP for R11 was 1 and for R12 it is 0.86. So that means they depleted the ozone layer. Then we shifted to HCFCs, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, because they were having low ozone depletion potential. For example, R22, its ODP is very low, 0.055, and till now up to 2020 we are using it in air conditioning industry. Then we shifted to HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons, and their mixtures actually. If I talk about R134A, it is a high hydrofluorocarbon, R152A. Then azeotrops and zeotrops, they are also mixtures of pure refrigerants. The advantage of using these their ODP is 0 actually, but they have high global warming potential. I hope you understand what is global warming. Then, because they were having high global warming potential, we shifted to hydrocarbon mixtures and hydrocarbons like propane, R290 is propane, R600A is butane. They have ozone depletion potential 0. And you know that ozone depletion potential is because of chlorine present in the refrigerant. If we talk of R290, it is C3H8, so there is no chlorine at all. And moreover, it doesn't have very high global warming potential. It has low global warming potential. Still, it is having a certain amount of the global warming potential below 200 actually. So then we shifted to HFOs. What are HFOs? These are hydrofluoroolefins. Now hydrofluoroolefins are 120, 1234YF or 1234ZE. They have a global warming potential which is even less than 10. Ozone depletion potential is 0 because they don't contain any chlorine atom. But the best part is that we also have the natural refrigerants. Natural refrigerants like ammonia, CO2, H2O. They are the best refrigerants. And all this has happened because of certain treaties like Montreal Protocol, which started limiting the uses of the substances that deplete ozone layer. Then Kyoto Protocol was held, which restricted the uses of substances that cause global warming. Then it was Kigali Agreement, which is also basically banning the use of the HFCs, that they want that we should switch over to such refrigerant which have low global warming potential. So this is basically a challenge for us, that we are using such refrigerants in vapor compression system which are harmful for the environment. So what I can do, I can either go for a drop-in replacement. Now, what is a drop-in replacement? Drop-in replacement means I take a refrigerant, I choose a new refrigerant, and I put it into the existing system as it is, and it start working very fine actually. It doesn't show any deviations. It gives the total COP as was being given by the earlier system, in which the refrigerant was which was causing ozone depletion or say global warming potential also. Otherwise, if you are using such a refrigerant which cannot be used as a drop-in replacement, then what you will have to do, if you are using a new refrigerant, then you may have to redesign the system components. Okay, so redesigning the system components is a tedious task. You need the industry to go into the manufacturing of a new type of the compressor, condenser, evaporator, and expansion devices, and so on. Then certain changes in the oil are also required. Okay, all this is okay. Now what happens when we use a new refrigerant, a alternate refrigerant? What will happen? It may give you low energy efficiency. Low energy efficiency here means is low COP. So that means there are a lot of challenges with the vapor compression system, and one of the best alternative technology to replace vapor compression system is vapor absorption system. But till now we are using it for large cooling capacity only. So that is the drawback. But still, even if we can use it for large cooling capacity, we can reduce the global warming and uh, ozone depletion potential. Okay, so now I am switching over to vapor absorption systems. Now first of all, I would like to talk about the advantages of the vapor absorption system. First basic advantage is it is a heat operated system. It can be operated by solar energy, it can be operated by waste heat or geothermal energy, engine exhaust also. So you can understand that there are these different sources have different temperature range actually. See, engine exhaust could be available at 450 degrees Celsius. Solar energy could be available up to 200 degrees Celsius. Geothermal energy may be available at say 70 degrees Celsius. Waste heat may be available at 100 degrees Celsius, 120, 150, and so on. It is not using any minimum electricity consumption for the pumping. Then we have uh, environment friendly refrigerant absorbent pair. Why environment friendly? I am saying it is using water, lithium bromide. If you see water, water is not causing any ozone depletion. Lithium bromide is a salt actually. Okay, ammonia, though it's poisonous, but water is once again absorbent here. Ammonia is refrigerant. As a refrigerant, it's a very good refrigerant. It does not cause ozone depletion. It does not cause global warming. Okay, then what is the another advantage of vapor absorption is COP not affected much by variation in load temperature. Means the evaporator temperature. Even when we are changing the evaporator temperature, the COP will not be affected much. And the cooling capacity, even if we are changing the cooling capacity, COP is not affected much. It doesn't have any moving parts except a pump. Okay, and the life is very long, somewhere around 20 years. If you think of a vapor compression system, the life would be somewhere around 7 8 years or maximum 10 years. After 10 years, naturally you will have to go for a new system actually. Then there is a no compressor, and we are using a thermo compression system, low maintenance cost. These are some of the advantages. And on the right hand side here, you can see a simple sketch of the vapor compression system showing generator, condenser, absorber, and evaporator. Now, uh, both the systems are shown here. The vapor absorption system, you can see I have highlighted in green color, whereas VCRS I am showing in red color, just to point out that yes, VCRS is harmful in some way actually. Now, what is the difference basically in both the system? So basically, the compressor which is used in a vapor compression system is not there in case of a vapor absorption system. So you can see the condenser is there, the expansion valve is there, evaporator is there, but there is no compressor in vapor absorption system. So apart from these three components, evaporator, condenser, and expansion device, we have four more components, and these are absorber, generator, pressure reducing valve, and pump, which basically have replaced the compressor actually. Now you know the function of the compressor in a vapor compression system. Its function is to continuously withdraw the refrigerant vapor from the evaporator and to raise its pressure and hence temperature, so that the heat absorbed in the evaporator along with the work of compression can be rejected in the condenser to the surrounding. So it's easy, you already know it. Now, how this function is taken care of in case of a vapor compression system, vapor absorption system rather. See, first of all, one more difference between vapor compression and vapor absorption is that when we say vapor compression, that means we are compressing the vapor. Here, the basic difference in vapor absorption is we are absorbing the refrigerant vapor which is leaving the evaporator. And in later slides, you will be able to understand how it is working also. So, first of all, I would like to tell you how the function of compressor is being carried out with the help of these four components: generator, pump, this is pressure reducing valve, and this is absorber. So let us see what the absorber's function is. The absorber absorbs refrigerant vapor by its weak or poor solution. So weak solution is actually entering here in the evaporator in a suitable absorbent or adsorbent, forming a strong or rich solution. So rich solution is here at this particular point actually. So now let us see the function of the pump. Pump is utilized for pumping the rich solution. Here we have the rich solution of the absorbent and the refrigerant, and it increases its pressure to that of the pressure which is existing in the generator. And what we do in the generator? In the generator, we carry out the distillation of the vapor from the rich solution, leaving the poor solution from recycling. So basically what we are doing, we are supplying heat at this particular point. By supplying the heat at this particular point in generator, the refrigerant is in the superheated phase, leaves the generator, whereas we have the weak solution which is going towards the absorber. So basically pump is increasing the pressure, in the generator we are supplying the heat, and because of which the refrigerant is generated, and this is basically helpful in carrying out the function which is being done by the compressor in case of a vapor compression system. Now in this sketch, you just see this sketch. This sketch actually shows the various components according to their pressures and their temperatures. So first of all, you can see this is the evaporator, and this is the temperature of the cold body, P naught. So this is one of the temperatures, and the pressure is shown here, it is P naught. Actually this component evaporator should not be here, it should have been here, because if you see the previous diagram, you can see this absorber and evaporator, they are connected by the same pipeline. Once they are connected by the same pipeline, the pressure in both the components is same actually. So this diagram I have taken from one of the books. So there it is, this diagram is not perfectly all right. So this evaporator and absorber, they are at the same pressure level. Let us say this is the P naught pressure which is existing there, and the temperature in the evaporator is this temperature T naught. And then we have the condenser, it is working at the pressure Pk. Then we have the generator, it is also working at the pressure Pk, whereas the absorber, it is working at the pressure P naught. So basically this vapor absorption system is a two pressure cycle, like a vapor compression system actually. And what we are doing, we are supplying the heat to the generator at a temperature TH, whereas the condenser is rejecting heat, absorber is rejecting heat to the ambient at Tk temperature. So basically there are three temperatures level. One is T naught, another is Tk, and the third one is Th. So two pressure level and three temperature levels which are there in this particular system. So now what is happening in the evaporator? We have the refrigerating effect which is equal to Q naught. It is produced in the evaporator. We have to supply the work here in the pump. Then the absorber is throwing away the heat here. Condenser is throwing away the heat, and in the generator we are supplying the heat QH. So basically there are energy input into the evaporator, pump, and the generator, whereas the energy is thrown out from the system from the absorber and the condenser. So we can write the energy balance of the system, which is given here. Q naught, it is the evaporator load. Then this is the pump work. This is we are inputting it. Then this is Qg. This is the heat which we are inputting into the generator. Then we have the condenser load, and absorber load. These are the energies which are leaving the system. So a absorption system is balanced when all these energy balance does exist actually. Now, I would like to highlight here about the pump work. Now, you know that in pump, we are handling the liquid actually. Okay, the pump was installed in the solution line actually, where the strong solution is flowing to the pump actually. You will see the diagrams later on also, but for the timing, I am telling you that the pump is in the uh, line, and through it the strong solution is flowing. Strong solution, whether it's a if I call it as a water lithium bromide system, or if I take ammonia water system. So the specific volume, whether it is water as a refrigerant or ammonia as a refrigerant, okay, in both the cases the specific volume is very small, and the pressure difference could be large also. Okay, so if I compare it with a vapor compression system, then the pump work is very small, because the specific volume of the liquids is very small. And I would like to tell you that the pump work would be somewhere around 0.01 times that of compressor work. So it means it is nearly 100 times less than the compressor work if we are using a vapor compression system. So you can understand, within the same pressure limits, if I am using a vapor compression system, the compressor power will be about 100 times more than the pump work. So it's very small. Okay, so uh, this is D is the mass of the vapor which is distilled actually. Okay, distilled means I am talking about the refrigerant flow rate actually. Okay, and based on this I will talk about later on also, but for the timing, we have to divide all the heat inputs and work values by this particular value of D, so that we get the values on the per unit mass basis of the mass of the vapor distilled. So we can say that this is the final equation. Okay, see here, you can see I have replaced the WP by QP, so there can be, we can add WP in this equation also. Okay, that can also be added. QP is you can say is the heat lost by the pump actually. Okay, so that is there, but I have already told you this WP value, pump work, is very small actually. Okay, so here we have calculated on the basis of per unit mass. So COP, so COP is, you know, is refrigerating effect divided by the energy supply. So what is the refrigerating effect? Refrigerating effect is the cooling effect produced in the evaporator divided by the energy which we are inputting into the system for running the system, for operating the system, and that energy is the heat which we are supplying in the generator and the pump work. Okay, these are the two things that we are supplying. But as I told you that the pump work is very small, so we can always neglect this particular value, and then we have the value of COP, which is approximately equal to Q naught divided by QG, and it will not vary much by taking considering the pump work to be negligible actually, because it's very small. Now let us talk about the maximum coefficient of performance of the heat operated refrigerated machine, or VARS, vapor absorption system. See, we can consider this system to be operating as a heat engine, as a combination of heat engine and a refrigerator. So this is a heat engine part and this is a refrigerator part. So heat engine is operating between the temperature TH and TK. So this temperature pertains to the generator temperature, and this temperature pertains to the condenser temperature or absorber temperature. So heat engine is operating between generator temperature and the condenser temperature or absorber temperature. Basically, it is the left hand side, or it is the component absorber which we usually take. So it is TG and TA, means it is operating between generator and the absorber. The temperature in both the components may be same. That is why I said that TC is equal to TA. Otherwise, there is no other reason for that. And the refrigerator is operating between T naught, which is the load temperature, and TC, this temperature. So that means what we can do is we can write the value of COP as Q naught divided by QG. This I have explained in the previous slide. One more thing I would like to tell you, whatever is the work which is produced by this heat engine, that is actually going to drive this refrigerator part actually. Okay, so after getting this particular equation, what I have done, I have multiplied and divided by W. W is this work actually, this W. So you can see W divided by QG. QG is nothing but this value actually. QH here, it is QH or QG, because this is the heat which is being given to the generator. So W divided by QG into Q naught divided by W. So this expression, if you see this value, is nothing but this is the efficiency of the heat engine, and this value Q naught divided by W is the COP of the refrigerator. And if we want to calculate the maximum values, then we should take these values in terms of the temperatures only, because when we are taking the values in temperature, it's a reversible cycle actually. If I am taking the values in heat and work units, then it's not the reversible, though the values can be equal to the reversible, but it is the equation for a reversible as well as for reversible system. So the maximum COP can be written in terms of the efficiency of the Carnot cycle, which is actually Tg minus Tk. This value is nothing but Tc, rather than you can say Ta. It is absorber temperature. So this is nothing but 1 minus Ta divided by Tg, and this value is the COP of reversible refrigerator. So I hope that this is clear to you. Now, so it implies that COP of a heat operated refrigerating machine is equal to the product of thermal efficiency of heat engine part of the cycle and coefficient of performance for cooling of the refrigeration part of the cycle. Accordingly, COP of vapor absorption system is expressed by Q naught by Qg, once again same thing, and it should not be compared with COP of vapor compression system, which is given by Q naught divided by W. Now this is you may wonder why we can't compare these two things. I would like to tell you, see, if you see the expression for the COP of the vapor absorption system, you can see it here. You can see in the numerator as well as in the denominator, both are the heat transfers. Okay, these are heat quantities, so they are low grade energies. We are comparing low grade energies, and it is perfectly all right when we are comparing two types of the same type of the energy in numerator and denominator. But when we talk about the COP of the vapor compression system, we are talking about two different types of the energies. One energy is heat energy, and which is the low grade energy, whereas W is the high grade energy. So how can we compare the COP of vapor compression system to vapor absorption system? I would like to give you an example. Now the COP of a vapor absorption system, the system which I have shown you here, is somewhere around, varies between 0.6 to 0.8, whereas the COP of vapor compression system could be varying between 2 to 3. Now you know this is varying between 2 to 3, whereas for vapor absorption it is 0.6 to 0.8. So you will say, yes, sir, this vapor absorption system is not a good system because its COP is very low, whereas that of COP of vapor compression system is very high, but varying between 2 to 3. But I would like to tell you, suppose if I have to supply here, say, work, that means ultimately this work will come from some form of the heat only. And when this heat, when we will supply this in the power plant, it will be converted to work actually. And the efficiency of the power plant is somewhere around 40%. So that means this value of the COP actually will reduce by a factor of point. You have to multiply this by 0.4 actually. So when you will multiply it by 0.4, if you take the value as 2 and multiply it by 40% efficiency of the power plant, what is the value that you get? It is 0.8. So don't you think that the value of COP of vapor compression and vapor absorption is same? So naturally, yes, it is nearly same when we compare the same form of the energy. So I have compared W in terms of heat energy only. Now, it can be seen from the above expression, the expression which I have written for the reversible COP of the vapor absorption system. It is depending upon three temperatures: TG, generator temperature, which is the highest temperature of the system. This is TK, means condenser or the absorber temperature, and T naught, this is the evaporator temperature. And in order for it to be high, one should have temperature TG of the heat source as high as possible. जितना भी ज़्यादा होगा जनरेटर टेम्परेचर, उतना ज़्यादा COP मिलेगी मुझे. जो फार्मूला है वो यही कह रहा है. और अगर मैं टेम्परेचर हीट सिंक का जो कंडेंसर है या एब्जॉर्बर टेम्परेचर है, जितना लो रखूँगा उसको, उतना ज़्यादा COP मिलेगी. रेफ्रिजरेटर का भी टेम्परेचर मैं जितना ज़्यादा हाई रखूँगा, उतनी ज़्यादा मुझे COP मिलेंगी. Sorry, I switched over to Hindi actually, but sometimes to emphasize it more, Hindi is a better language actually. Okay, now, however, absorption system is not a reversible cycle. There is a degree of irreversibility due to mixing of refrigerant and absorbent. So there is irreversibility involved in the process where in the absorber actually. Okay, that is the worst part of the vapor absorption system because there is mixing taking place actually. Therefore, its COP first increases with the increase in the generator temperature. What you have heard just now, the temperature of the heat source should be as high as possible. So I would like to operate the absorption system at the highest temperature. So I should keep on increasing the temperature. But what is going to happen actually? The COP will first increase, okay, with the increase in the generator temperature. It reaches an optimum value, means it will reach a maxima, and then it will start decreasing as a result of increase in irreversibility at high generator temperature. And this irreversibility, if you have studied thermodynamics, you can understand this irreversibility comes because of the finite temperature difference actually. Now, what are the various common refrigerant absorbent properties which we should focus on when we are choosing a refrigerant absorbent mixture for a vapor absorption system? The one thing is it should have low viscosity, okay, to minimize the pumper. Higher the viscosity, more is the pumper. Low freezing point, good chemical and thermal stability. There should not be any chemical reactions such as decomposition, polymerization, corrosion. These are to be avoided. In addition to above, two main thermodynamic requirements. What are two thermodynamic requirements? This is very, very important. The first one is the solubility requirement. The refrigerant should have high solubility in the absorbent. The refrigerant should have high solubility in the absorbent. This is required in the absorber section, so that highly rich refrigerant is formed in the absorber by the absorption of the refrigerant vapor. So we want that strong solution should be formed in the absorber. Then there is boiling requirement. Once this strong solution is formed with the help of the refrigerant and the weak solution which is coming from the generator actually, it should also be easy to separate, and for that we have a boiling point requirement. There should be a large difference in normal boiling point of two substances, at least 200 degrees Celsius. So this is very, very important. This temperature should be 200 degrees Celsius so that the absorbent exerts negligible vapor pressure at the generator temperature. Thus, almost absorbent-free refrigerant is boiled off from the generator and the absorbent alone returns to the absorber. So, basically it is about the weak solution which should return to the absorber. So when I will go to the next slides, I will tell you how it is functioning actually. If the absorbent vapor goes with the refrigerant vapor to the refrigerant circuit, the refrigeration produced will not be isothermal. So this is very important. See, in the generator section, when we are supplying the heat and the temperature difference between the normal points is less than 200 degrees Celsius, there is a chance that the absorbent will also go along with the refrigerant to the condenser. It may go to the evaporator also, and then it may create problem in the evaporator. And the problem is the refrigeration produced will not be isothermal. Normally, you know, in vapor compression system, the process of refrigeration takes place at constant pressure and constant temperature if there is no superheating actually in the evaporator. Okay. Now, in case of solid adsorbent is used, it does not exert any vapor pressure. The pure refrigerant vapor only will go to the refrigerant circuit. Two commonly used pairs are those of refrigerant ammonia, absorbent water, or there is next pair is water as the refrigerant and as adsorbent lithium bromide, and this ammonia water is used for the refrigeration purpose and lithium bromide is used for the air conditioning purpose. The reason is clear because water has a freezing point which is 0 degrees Celsius, so we have to keep the system at a temperature which is higher than 0 degrees Celsius, somewhere around 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, whereas the ammonia's normal boiling point is minus 33 degrees Celsius. Normal boiling point means the pressure is 1 atmosphere and corresponding vapor pressure is 1 bar actually, or corresponding temperature is minus 33 degrees Celsius. So ammonia water is satisfactory from the viewpoint of the solubility requirement. There is no problem that the ammonia and water can mix into each other without any difficulty. But the difference in their boiling points is only 133 degrees Celsius. So what will happen in the generator where we will supply heat to separate them? We won't be able to separate ammonia and the water actually. So we actually want pure ammonia should go to the condenser section and the evaporator section. But that does not happen. There is always some ammonia, water which also goes along with the uh, ammonia and it enters into the evaporator also. So the cooling which is taking place in the evaporator is not at all isothermal. Okay, so that also causes temperature glide in the evaporator section. So thus ammonia water system is not suitable from the viewpoint of boiling point requirement. From the solubility point of requirement, it is okay. Whereas if you talk about the water lithium bromide system, water is the refrigerant, lithium bromide is adsorbent, and the boiling point difference is 700 degrees Celsius. So it's much more than 200 degrees Celsius. Hence, the mixture of water lithium bromide is used only in air conditioning application. Since it freezes at 0 degree, I have already told you. The mixture is also satisfactory from the viewpoint of the solubility requirement. So basically, I have explained there are two requirements. One is about the solubility requirement, and second is the boiling point requirement. Boiling point requirement says 200 degrees Celsius difference, whereas solubility requirement says that the refrigerant and absorbent or adsorbent should be highly soluble at the absorber pressure. Now, since lithium bromide salt is a salt, it exerts no vapor pressure in the generator section. So the vapor leaving the generator is a pure refrigerant. The mixture therefore satisfies the boiling point requirement also. However, yes, now this is very important point for water lithium bromide system. It is corrosive and the plant works under high vacuum. Okay, so ammonia water system, if you talk, it is positive pressure everywhere, but if it is a water lithium bromide system, it is working under negative pressure, both in condenser as well as in evaporator. So a purge unit is required in case of water lithium bromide system. Now, as I told you that in case of ammonia water, there is every possibility that the vapor which is going to the condenser can contain water as the along with the ammonia actually. So what we do actually is in the generator, the strong solution which is leaving the absorber here first passes through this solution heat exchanger. This is the solution heat exchanger. It goes to the analyzer. Analyzer is a sort of you can say separator, where there we have the liquid here or the strong solution which is entering the analyzer. Here the generator, in the generator there are the vapors of solution which are moving upwards. So if there is any ammonia which is present here, these are the baffle actually, these are the baffles. Okay, so any moisture this liquid is at high temperature, any moisture will go down into the generator section, and we have lesser water particle here. Okay, here we have lesser water particle at this particular point, and we also have a separate rectifier or dehydrator implemented in a ammonia water absorption system for the purpose that we means reject heat here, and whatever is the moisture which is present here in the form of the water, that will be settled here and will go down from this strip into the analyzer, and once again it will go back to the generator. The reason is, whenever we are supplying heat here in the generator, say I take a temperature of say 100 degrees Celsius, what will happen? The normal boiling point of ammonia is minus 33, whereas the normal boiling point of moisture or the water is 100 degrees Celsius. So which component will boil first of all? It is ammonia. But there is every possibility at 100 degrees Celsius the water will also boil. So that is the reason why it goes along with ammonia, and that was the reason why we require a temperature difference of 200 degrees Celsius between the two components. If I would have some other absorbent in place of water for which the normal boiling point is 200 degrees Celsius, then I would not need this rectifier or this analyzer part actually, because at 100 degrees Celsius that absorbent will not boil off actually. So that is very important actually. And then um, uh, in a practical system, as it is the practical vapor absorption system of ammonia and water, we have introduced a solution heat exchanger also, because the liquid which is the weak solution which is coming from here, this W shows the weak solution which is coming from the generator is at high temperature, whereas the liquid which is strong here, S shows the strong solution which is going through the pump, is at the low temperature. So the heat exchange takes place here between the strong solution and the weak solution, and the temperature here actually increases at that particular point, and we have to supply lesser amount of the heat in the generator, and it will increase the COP of the system. Simultaneously, we also have used a liquid vapor heat exchanger in the condenser and the evaporator section, and because of which we can subcool the refrigerant before it goes into the evaporator. That will also increase the COP of the system. Okay, this was about the practical vapor absorption system. Now this is the Electrolux refrigerator. So it is also a type of you can say vapor absorption system. Now this is also very simple. Here also similar components are there, but one very important thing about it is there is no pump actually. It is a thermosiphon system. It is working on the principle of thermosiphon. The components are arranged in such a way that the flow is taking place automatically. Can you see any device here which is making the fluid to flow? No, there is no device here. It is all together working on the thermosiphon principle. And one more important point about it is that it's only a small amount of the heat energy is required in the generator, and it's a three fluid refrigerator. So let me explain its working. Now Electrolux refrigerator works as a three fluid system. It's a three fluid. What are those three fluids? One is ammonia, other is hydrogen, and then there is water also present in the system. Because when we say aqua ammonia, aqua, it is basically water and ammonia actually. Okay. There is no circulation pump. Total pressure in the system is same throughout. So the system is at same pressure everywhere. There is no where you will find that the pressure is different. The third fluid remains mainly in the evaporator, thus reducing partial pressure of the refrigerant to enable to evaporate at low pressure and hence low temperature. Now I would like to explain you what actually it's happening. See, this is condenser here. This is condenser. You see it is evaporator here. Here we have the generator. Here we have the absorber. Here we have a separator. Here we have U-tube seals. Okay, these are the four components. And the hydrogen actually remains only in the evaporator part and the absorber part actually. So what exactly is happening? See, here we have ammonia only, ammonia vapors. which are going into the condenser. After it passes through the condenser, it is condensed at this particular location. Okay, so why we have provided a U seal? U seal has been provided so that the hydrogen gas which has been provided to be circulated in evaporator and absorber should not go into the condenser actually. That is why, you know, hydrogen is lighter, so it will not go down actually. So this U seal prevents the motion of the hydrogen into the condenser actually. So that is why only the liquid ammonia passes from this U seal and goes into the evaporator. Now, what is the pressure of the ammonia here? I can see the pressure here is somewhere around 20 bar in the condenser. The moment it reaches into the evaporator, its pressure actually reduces because hydrogen is already present there. So, because of the Dalton's law of partial pressure, the pressure of the ammonia reduces. So probably I can give you a value. The pressure of the ammonia may fall to 2 bar in the evaporator. Once it falls to 2 bar, its temperature also reduces, and this reduction in the temperature causes the cooling effect to take place here in the evaporator and this section in the evaporator. And here in this section here, the ammonia vapors after passing from the evaporator are going down, and here you can see there is weak ammonia which is coming from the generator section from this passing from the separator. It is coming here. So this weak ammonia, aqua ammonia, and this ammonia which is in the vapor form at this particular location, they mix and they pass through the absorber. Weak aqua means it contains lesser amount of the ammonia, and ammonia is coming here, so they mix here and it becomes a rich solution or a strong solution because it contains more of the refrigerant now. Okay, and you see there is a arrow which is showing here the refrigerant hydrogen is going passing here to then passing here and then once again going back to hydrogen and then circulating here, and in between there is a heat exchanger which is provided here for the heat exchange to take place so that the cooling may take place. Now you see it here, after this strong aqua ammonia is produced here in the absorber section, it is passed through the generator. Hydrogen will not go here. Reason is it's a gas. It will not go downwards actually. So it's only the strong aqua which goes into the generator section. And because we are supplying heat here, because of this heat, the bubble formation will take place. And here in the separator, it will be a wet ammonia actually. So it will be containing moisture, water also, ammonia also, and ammonia vapor. Whatever the ammonia vapor would be there, they will pass here into the condenser because the ammonia is separated here. So here we will have weak aqua which is containing more of the water and less of the ammonia. So I hope the functioning of this Electrolux refrigerator is clear to you. Okay, so I will not go much here because I have already explained it from the diagram, but I would like to show you this particular slide. Here you can see what is the condenser temperature, 50 degree. What is the pressure of the ammonia, 20.33. The moment it reaches into the evaporator inlet, the pressure of ammonia has dropped to 1.5 bar, and at its exit, its pressure is minus 15. You know, because why there is change in the temperature and pressure, because the hydrogen is also present here, and that is why the evaporation in the evaporator is not isothermal. But if you see, the total pressure is 20.33 in the system. In the evaporator, the total pressure is 20.3. At the exit, the total pressure is 20.3. Generator top, it is 20.33. Everywhere the pressure is same in the system. But the hydrogen gas is functioning as a expansion device. If you will see the system here, you can see there is no expansion device in the system. You remember the vapor compression system. After the condenser, there used to be an expansion device and expansion valve, a throttle valve. Here there is no throttle valve at all. The function of throttle valve is being done with the help of the hydrogen gas which is already present in the evaporator, and it is causing the pressure of ammonia to drop. By dropping the pressure of ammonia, the temperature also drops. So I hope this is clear to you. Okay, now till now whatever I have explained you was the things which students generally study at the UG level. Now I am just coming to a little bit higher level, say MTech or PhD level. Okay, so now I am saying that this diagram I have shown you earlier also, it's a single effect vapor absorption system. Okay, now I will take you into a little bit more depth, and I would like to explain you what is the meaning of the single effect here. Okay, first of all, there is a word which is written here as single effect. Now, what I have tried to do here is I have also shown the temperature ranges of the various components in this slide. You can see the temperature here in the generator section is 100 to 110. So I can go for some sort of waste heat. I can go for say solar energy, flat plate solar collector. Okay, this temperature absorber or condenser temperature. This totally depends upon the ambient condition. If the ambient condition is 35 degrees Celsius, that means the temperature in the condenser has to be 40. Similarly, because in the absorber we are rejecting the heat to the surroundings, so its temperature has to be higher than the ambient temperature. Sometimes, normally I would like to tell you we don't go for air as the coolant in the condenser because usually the absorption systems are big systems. So we use to cool them by water cooling actually. So it will depend upon the temperature of the water also. Okay. Now, uh, here is a evaporator temperature which I am saying is 5 degrees Celsius. Okay, so these are the various temperature conditions which I am trying to show you. Now, single effect, first of all, as I told you, is a system which will operate at this particular temperature range between 90 to 110. Okay, the moment you go for the higher temperature beyond 120 or say 130 or 140 or 150, you will not be using single effect vapor absorption system because there will be a lot of wastage of the high low grade energy which has more available energy in it. Okay, because if it is 150 degrees Celsius, you have more available energy which you can utilize for some other purpose also. So this system we will use when we have energy which is available to us at 100 to 120 or say 90 to 120 degrees Celsius, not more than that. Now this part on the left hand side, this all is known as solution circuit. This is solution circuit. Okay, and the right hand side, this part, if you see this part, this is actually known as refrigerant circuit. So this is very important to identify that we have only refrigerant going in the right section, whereas we have solution in the left section. And mind it, when I say when I am talking about this particular system, I have in my mind that it's not a ammonia water system because in case of ammonia water, you know, there is a analyzer and uh, rectifier involved. So it's a lithium bromide water system where water is acting as a refrigerant. That is why the temperature which I have shown here in the evaporator is 5 degrees Celsius. Now what happens in this system, how it is functioning actually. Now let us see. Now at state point 10, if you see here, it is the exit from the evaporator. You remember what happens in case of vapor compression system. What comes out of the evaporator? It is basically the saturated vapor refrigerant. So here it is also the saturated water, saturated steam actually at low pressure, which is coming here. Okay, and you can see this absorber and evaporator, they are connected by the same pipeline. So if I say the pressure in evaporator is PE and the pressure in the absorber is PA, so these are same pressure levels. PA is equal to PE actually. And similarly, if you see here, the generator and condenser section, PG and PC, they are also at the same pressure level. So we have here steam, saturated steam, which is entering into the absorber. This is absorber actually. Okay. Now what happens? From the generator, we have generated the superheated steam here at this particular point number 7. because here we are supplying the heat. So from the solution which is entering into the generator, the steam goes out, water goes out, and here we have the weak solution W. W stands for weak. When I say weak, it means weak in refrigerant because the refrigerant has been separated in the generator section. So now it is weak in refrigerant. Okay. Then it is passed through this solution heat exchanger. The reason I have already explained you, because I want that if the temperature of the solution here is 100 degrees Celsius, weak solution is 100 degrees Celsius, and after the pumping, because you can see at state point 1, it is the strong solution, it will be at 40 degrees Celsius. After pumping also, it will be at 40 degrees Celsius. It is entering into the solution heat exchanger. So I would like that the heat which I need to supply in the generator should be reduced. So I have a heat exchanger here, and this heat exchanger is known by SHE, means solution heat exchanger, and there is only solution in this part only. Once it goes to state point 3, I can say the temperature here is somewhere around 80 degrees Celsius, and then the temperature here in the generator is somewhere around 90 degrees Celsius because the heat source is at 100 to 110 degrees Celsius. So I hope this part is clear now. At 4, it is the weak solution. It passes through the solution heat exchanger, then comes down at state point 5. So I can say the temperature here might have reduced to say 60 degrees Celsius. And then it passes through the solution throttle valve here. Solution throttle valve actually reduces the pressure only. It doesn't changes the temperature. So the temperature could be 59 or 60 degrees Celsius only. So at high temperature, this weak solution enters into the absorber where it absorbs the refrigerant which is coming from the evaporator actually. So that is how the absorption process takes place, and this absorption process releases lot of heat. It's an exothermic reaction actually. That is why we need to throw heat into the atmosphere. So now let us come to the right hand side. Here we have the refrigerant which is entering into the condenser. It is superheated refrigerant because, as I have already told you, it is lithium bromide water system and it functions under the vacuum. So the pressure is very low here. It could be somewhere around 10 kilopascal if I remember exactly. I don't remember exactly. It could be around 10 kilopascal, 20 kilopascal. I don't remember exactly. Okay. So it's very low pressure. So what will happen? See, the pressure is also very low, and it is a superheated steam here because at low pressure, if the temperature is 90 or 100 degrees Celsius, it will be a superheated steam. So we lose heat here, and it goes into the condenser, passes through the refrigerant throttle valve, and then passes through the evaporator. Here it produces the cooling effect, and that is how this system functions. Now coming back to the first thing that I wanted to tell you, what is single effect? See, I am supplying heat here in the generator. It could be waste heat, it could be solar energy, it could be some other form of the energy, and this heat is utilized only once for producing the refrigerant in the total system. कहने का मतलब ये है कि जो रेफ्रिजरेंट मैं प्रोड्यूस कर रहा हूँ इस हीट से सिर्फ एक बार कर रहा हूँ, 2 बार नहीं किया। कुछ सिस्टम ऐसे भी होते हैं जिसमें मैं सेम हीट को दोबारा यूज करके रेफ्रिजरेंट को 2 बार जनरेट करता हूँ, तो उस केस में वो डबल इफेक्ट बन जाता है, वो आगे आएगा अभी। सो बेसिकली व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट सिंगल इफेक्ट system, its COP would be somewhere around 0.8. Okay, now let me move to next slide. Now what is very important in this particular case is solution circulation ratio, and it is given by the ratio of mass of strong solution to the mass of the refrigerant. So where is refrigerant? Refrigerant is here, and the strong solution is here, which is leaving the absorber. So it means if you see this term solution circulation ratio, मतलब सिंपल सा मतलब ये है कि मुझे 1 kg रेफ्रिजरेंट जनरेट करने के लिए जनरेटर में कितना सॉल्यूशन सर्कुलेट करना पड़ेगा। तो इसकी वैल्यू कितनी हो सकती है? इसकी वैल्यू हो सकती है 6 से 10 के बीच में। मतलब सॉल्यूशन जो है 10 गुना है या 6 गुना है अगर मुझे रेफ्रिजरेंट 1 kg चाहिए। तो इसका मतलब मुझे जो है सॉल्यूशन 6 to 10 टाइम्स सर्कुलेट करना पड़ रहा है। तो ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पैरामीटर है। अगर बहुत ज़्यादा होगा इससे तो लॉस बढ़ जाता है। सॉल्यूशन सर्कुलेशन रेशियो की जो वैल्यू होनी चाहिए 6 से 10 11 इसके आसपास होगी। इफ इट इज़ वेरी हाई then there will be losses and the COP will reduce actually. I will explain you in the later slides actually. Now you see it here. There is a term concentration. Now what is concentration? Concentration is nothing but mass of absorbent divided by mass of solution. So mass of absorbent means kgs of absorbent, and in case of water lithium bromide, it is the mass of the lithium bromide divided by mass of solution means it is kgs of water plus kgs of LiBr. Okay, that is the total mass of the solution. So this is how we define the concentration actually. So it's clear from this diagram here that XS is the strong solution and XW is the weak solution. So now do you know which is higher actually, XW or XS? See, it contains XS. What is XS? Concentration of strong solution. Strong in what? A refrigerant. Weak solution means concentration of weak solution means weak in refrigerant. Why weak? Because the refrigerant has already left, has been separated here. Sometimes we call this generator as desorber also, because in the absorber we are absorbing the refrigerant. In the generator, also known as desorber, we are separating the refrigerant. Okay, so when we have separated the refrigerant, what will happen to the mass of the absorbent at this particular point, state point 4? When we have removed the refrigerant, the mass of absorbent in the total solution will increase. So it's evident that the value of XW will be higher than XS. XW will be greater than XS. And now this is very important diagram. This is actually, if you see this particular system which I have shown here in this particular slide, this here I have shown all the boxes and I have not taken care of any pressure levels or any temperature levels, but this diagram takes into consideration the values of concentration, pressures and temperatures. So it has been, the components are arranged in such a way that it takes care about the temperatures, pressures and concentration. So you can see it here. You can see this is evaporator. Now it is on the left side. This is refrigerant expansion valve. So the refrigerant is flowing in this direction. This is condenser. Here we have the desorber. Desorber means generator. Okay, it is generator. Here we have the solution heat exchanger. Here we have the solution expansion valve. Here we have the absorber. Here we have the pump. So these have been arranged according to their concentration. Right now in this diagram you may not be able to appreciate it. Now let me show you the next diagram. So you can see this particular diagram here. This particular diagram is about log P versus 1 by T diagram for a single effect lithium bromide water absorption system. So what you can see here, this is point number 1. Here we have, where is this point number 1? Actually you should see it actually. The point number 1 is here. This is the exit of the absorber. So here we have the strong solution at low pressure. So you can see it is the evaporator pressure and it is also equal to the absorber pressure. So it is at this particular point. Okay, and this is the 1 by T value. Okay, this is 1 by T and this is actually increasing in this particular direction. Here it is compressed. So there is no change in the concentration. It is XS only. It reaches, this 2 shows the exit of the pump, 3 shows the exit of the solution heat exchanger. Okay, so normally when we draw this diagram we don't take care about the temperature actually. At 2 and 3 the temperatures are different actually. Okay, we don't take care about that. 2 it is the exit of the pump, 3 it is the exit of the solution heat exchanger, and these lines which are drawn inclined here, it is known as isosphere. Isosphere means constant concentration line, constant concentration lines. So here at this particular location, where are you? Where is the refrigerant? It is entering into the you can say generator. And what is happening in the generator? Pressure is Pg. Pg is also equal to Pc. And here we are supplying heat. So what is happening? The refrigerant is coming out from the generator actually. So what will be its concentration? I said the concentration X is defined as the mass of the absorbent divided by the mass of the solution. So once I say absorbent, so in refrigerant, will there be any absorbent? No. So it means that the concentration of the refrigerant is zero because there is no absorbent. So that is why we have shown it at point number 7. So this particular point is separated in two parts. One is the weak solution, which is at state point 5, and other is the refrigerant part, which is at state point 7. So 7 to 8, what is happening actually? 7 to 8 is condensation in the condenser. The pressure remains constant. As I told you, we are not worried about the temperature part here. Why not worried about it? Because moreover in the condenser, the temperature will remain constant actually. It is a latent heat process. But at 7, the temperature is high. Why temperature is high? Because it is superheated steam. Okay, and after that it passes through the expander refrigerant throttle valve, so its pressure is reduced and it comes at 8.9. Then it goes into the evaporator and it carries the process of heating, and then after the evaporator, it is mixed in the here in the absorber, and here we have the solution throttle valve which is reducing the pressure, and at state point 6 it is entering into the absorber. So state point 6 and state point 10, when they mix, we once again come back to the initial state actually. Okay, so I hope this part is clear to you. And now let us see. I will not go into the much detail of the series flow double effect. Just I will uh, show you what I want to say here. See, now you see it here. Now there are some more components here. What are those more components? The extra components you can see. This is one of the components. This all is extra component in a series flow double effect absorption system. Single effect, I told you, we are utilizing the heat only once, but here we are trying to utilize the heat in twice actually. All other components, condenser, evaporator, absorber, they are doing the same function. Pump is doing the same function. Solution throttle valve is doing the same function. Solution heat exchangers are doing the same function of regenerative heating actually. Okay, but these are the extra components. Why we need these extra components? Now one difference, this type of system, when I say double effect system, will only be used when the temperature is higher, somewhere around 130 to 160, 165, 170. Okay, so that is why I have chosen a temperature of 140 to 150 degrees Celsius here. Now I am increasing the pressure to a higher level here now, because now the temperature is high here in the generator. When the temperature is high, I can go for the higher pressure. So that actually helps me in generating the refrigerant here. Okay, because there is a combination of pressure and temperature which is responsible for generating the refrigerant from the generator. So because of that, we have to increase the temperature pressure to a higher level in the uh, series flow double effect system. I haven't told you what is series flow actually. Okay, so that means once we have generated the refrigerant here, now you can see what is the generator temperature here. It could be somewhere around 140 degrees Celsius. I told you this system is working under vacuum, and the temperature is 140 degrees Celsius for steam. So it's superheated steam. So why to waste the energy of this superheated steam? Why not to utilize it? So that is why I have used one more generator here. It is generator as well as condenser. So what it will do? It will actually uh, uh, superheated steam will pass from this heat exchanger. It will lose its heat here, and it will give its heat to this weak solution which is leaving the generator, which is passing through the solution heat exchanger too, and then it is reduced in pressure here in the solution throttle valve too, and then it enters into the generator condenser. Sometimes it is also known as second effect generator. This is high pressure generator, also called as first effect generator, and this is the second effect generator. So here what we are doing, we have reduced the pressure. I told you there is a particular pressure and particular temperature corresponding to which I can generate the refrigerant. So this refrigerant which is leaving the high pressure generator, when it passes through the low pressure generator here, because the pressure has been reduced for the solution here with the help of this solution throttle valve, so we are able to generate more refrigerant here. I can say whatever the amount of the refrigerant which I have generated here at this particular point, the same amount of the refrigerant is generated here also. So it is MR1, it is MR2. So I have doubled the amount of the refrigerant generated. So what will happen? In comparison to the previous system, the refrigerant generation is twice now. So when the twice amount of the refrigerant will go into the evaporator, what will happen? The cooling effect will be double now. So when it will be double, what will happen? The COP will be double. So it means this particular system will give me COP somewhere around 1.4 to 1.5 actually. So that is the value of the COP here. Then what is the meaning of the series flow? Series flow means the strong solution which is leaving the absorber goes in series into the generator. First it goes into the high pressure generator, passes here, goes to the solution heat exchanger, then goes into the generator here. So it is flowing in a series actually. We could have taken this in a parallel flow also. That I will show you in the later slides actually. So this is the similar log P versus 1 by T diagram. I don't want to bore you by explaining it. This you can try yourself actually. Okay. So this is the you can say the comparison of the COP for a series flow, double effect system and a single effect system. So here you can see this is the graph of double effect system for COP, and you can see the temperature range. It is somewhere around operating at 155, 165, and the minimum temperature though shown here is starting from 95, but usually it is not like that. Theoretically, we can always calculate or plot these graphs, but in actual practice, it will not work below 130, 140 degrees Celsius. And you can see here, I have told you the COP increases with increase in the generator temperature. This is the generator temperature here. This is generator temperature. It is increasing. Now you can see what is happening. See, the COP is increasing here. Then it is reaching to a maxima here. Then you can see it is going down. This downward trend is because of irreversibility, which is taking place at the higher temperature because of the finite temperature difference. So this is the graph of the double effect system. And what is the absorber temperature for this particular case? You can see the absorber temperature is 30 degrees Celsius. Here you can see the effect of the absorber temperature also. The moment absorber temperature increases, here you can see 35. So what is happening to the COP value? It has reduced. It has gone down. You take it 37.8. This is the graph for the COP. If you take it 40 degrees Celsius, this is the graph. So the moment absorber temperature increases, the value of COP reduces. And same thing you can see here for the single effect system. Its COP is somewhere, maximum COP is somewhere around 0.8 actually. Okay, and later on it is reducing. You can see once again it depends upon the absorber temperature. See here, if you see, if I take 30, it is the highest, followed by 37.8, then it is okay, sorry, it is 40, then 37.8, here it is 35, and here it is okay, here it is 40, 37.8, here it is 35, and here it is 30. So that is how this behavior of the COP is there in case of these systems. Now this also shows the effect of the condenser as well as the absorber temperature. I would like to show here which is more causing more harm to the COP values. So you can see the upper graph here only. So this is the curve. When I am varying the temperature of the condenser between 30 to 40, means this temperature is varying between 30 to 40. So this means it is condenser temperature now. And I have considered the absorber temperature as 30. So what is happening? For the varying condenser temperature, this is the curve for the COP. So it is reducing as the condenser temperature is increasing from 30 to 40. Now in the second case, what I have done, I have taken the condenser as at 30 degrees Celsius, whereas the absorber temperature is varying between 30 to 40. So here on the x-axis, now it shows the variation of the absorber temperature. It is increasing from 30 to 40, and the condenser temperature is 30 degree only. And this is the curve. So it means when the absorber temperature increases from 30 to 40, keeping the condenser temperature 30, the value of COP is lower. So it means which is more harmful? More harmful is increase of absorber temperature in comparison to that of condenser temperature. Okay. Now this shows the parallel flow double effect. Now I will not explain you what is the meaning of the double effect. You have understood what is the meaning of the double effect. I am utilizing the same heat twice in the system and generating refrigerant at two places, here in the high pressure generator and here in the low pressure generator. Here also we are generating the refrigerant. This is the refrigerant. This is the refrigerant. But what is the meaning of the parallel flow? That I would like to tell you. The parallel flow, here the strong solution is going up. Okay, so what I have done in the previous case, it had gone directly into the HPG and then it went into the LPG. But here I have taken it, I have split it here. So one part goes from here into the low pressure generator and other part goes from here into the high pressure generator. So it has been divided. So there is a term which is known as strong solution distribution ratio. It is equal to mass of strong solution which is entering the high pressure generator to the total mass of the strong solution. So it is given by MS2. MS2 is the mass of the strong solution which is going to the HPG, and MS is the total mass. So R is the ratio of these two factors actually. Okay. So there is this particular graph, and here you can see, here we have taken the temperature between 135 and 170, and this is the value of the R. You can see it here, corresponding to which we are getting the maximum COP, and this solution distribution ratio against which we have plotted this graph has been shown to vary between 0.19 to 0.828, and corresponding to these values we are getting the maximum COP for a parallel flow. I hope this is clear. Then this is the series flow triple effect system. So now what we are doing, okay, see once again, when I say parallel flow, once again the temperature here would be somewhere around 160, and I have used it in the graph here also. But when I say series flow triple effect system, the temperature at which we are supplying the heat in the generator is actually somewhere around up to 200 degrees Celsius. It varies from 170 degrees Celsius, 200 can go up to 225 degrees Celsius. That is why I have written here the heat source temperature is 190. So it is high pressure generator. Now why triple effect? Triple effect means now I am using three generators. This is the high pressure generator where first I am supplying the heat, I am producing this particular refrigerant. Then because it is at high temperature, it is the superheated steam here. Okay, this superheated steam, it is going to the medium pressure generator which is somewhere at around 140, which is the level of the double effect system. So MP generator corresponds to double effect system, then it is at 140. So once again we have the uh, steam which is generated here. Okay, this is the refrigerant which is generated here from the solution which is coming from here, and we have reduced the pressure here. So this solution gives rise to some refrigerant and it returns back to the solution heat exchanger. Then it goes to the third generator here, which is the low pressure generator, and this is corresponding to, you can say, single pressure generator temperature and pressure range. So we are generating refrigerant at three places. MR3, it should be yeah, this is MR3. Here it is MR2, and here we are generating MR1. So nearly in comparison to single effect system, we have generated three times the refrigerant, and it is only possible because the heat source which is available for the high pressure generator is at high temperature, somewhere around 200 degrees Celsius, 190 degrees Celsius. If the heat source temperature is 140, I will go for two stage. If it is double effect, If it is 200 degrees Celsius, I will go for triple effect. If it is 100 degrees Celsius, I will go for single effect, because I don't want to waste the availability of the energy actually, or the heat energy. So what will happen in this particular case? We have 3 times the refrigerant which is going to the evaporator. So what will happen? The COP of this system will be somewhere around 2. So the previous case it was 1.4 approximately. So this is the graph. So you can see it is somewhere around 1.9 maximum shown here. It depends upon the other parameter conditions also. So I am giving you the maximum value here actually. Okay. Otherwise, you can see the graph is plotted between COP and generator temperature here, which is going up to 200 degrees Celsius. Now, this is with respect to evaporator temperature. Here you can say when the evaporator temperature increases, then also the COP is increasing. You can see here we have the 5-degree evaporator temperature, here we have the 9-degree temperature, so the COP is increasing. But there are different absorber temperature. This absorber temperature corresponds to 40. So as I told you, as the evaporator temperature increases, the COP reduces. The moment you go for lower evaporator temperature, here the COP has increased. You go for 35, it increases more. You go for 25, it increases more, and so on. Okay. Now this is parallel flow triple effect system. So though it's 8, I will take 5-10 minutes more and finish it off. As I told you, I have prepared according to the time. So hardly 10-15 minutes I will take actually. So once again, like the previous system, I told you it is a series flow, because the refrigerant strong solution goes to the HP generator first of all, passes to the solution heat exchanger, goes to the MP generator, then passes here, uh, from here solution passes from here, goes here, then goes here. It is flowing in series actually. So once it is flowing in series, it means it's a series flow. So in parallel flow, what we have done here, we have divided this flow. This is the first point where I have divided the flow. It goes to the G1. This is the lowest pressure generator. Then I have divided it here. It is going to the medium pressure generator. Then the remaining solution goes to the high pressure generator. So it has been divided parallelly. So that is why it is known as parallel flow, triple effect. Okay. So this one shows the comparison of the COPs of all the single, double, triple effect system. COP of triple effect parallel flow system 2.1 approximately, I am saying. It can be even higher also. Series flow triple effect series flow system 1.9. COP double effect parallel flow 1.5. COP uh, double effect series flow 1.4. Single COP single effect 0.8. So you can see, as the number of effects are increasing, the COP is increasing. For parallel flow, the COP is always high. COP goes down with increase in absorber temperature and condenser temperature. So I have shown you, as the evaporator, absorber and condenser temperature will increase, COP will go down. Whereas with increase in evaporator temperature, COP will increase actually. So that is about the vapor absorption system. Now there is one very important point. That important point I would like to tell you here. See, whenever we use a uh, uh, lithium bromide water system, there is a very big problem with that, and that problem happens at a particular location in the system. I would like to tell you, otherwise you will say that this point has been missed actually. That, but for that I will have to go to the previous slides. So I am going back to the single effect system once again. Yeah, the diagram is not good here, so I will go to, let us say, very first slide, I think. Yes, this particular slide. Now you can see here I have not shown the solution heat exchanger here. So the solution heat exchanger is here. Here we have the solution. Now the problem exists at this particular point actually. See, the lithium bromide is a uh, adsorbent actually. So what happens? it has certain problem of crystallization. It becomes crystal at a certain pressure and certain temperature. So what happens if the concentration value here, if it goes more than 63%, it's a you can say rough value actually. Okay, at high temperature, as I told you, the temperature here is 100 degrees Celsius. There is no problem. The moment it passes through the solution heat exchanger, the temperature drops here. It comes to 60 degrees Celsius. The moment it comes at state point 4, the temperature is still 60 degrees Celsius. But we have a solution throttle valve pressure. PRV means uh, it should be PTV, pressure throttle valve. Okay, rather you can say it is solution throttle valve only. So the solution is throttled, so its pressure is reduced to that of absorber temperature. So what is happening? The temperature is reduced, pressure is reduced. So this particular location here, here, okay, it is the possibility that the crystallization of the lithium bromide salt may take place and it may choke the system. So we have to be very careful that the conditions at this particular location should not be conducive to the formation of you can say crystallization of the lithium bromide actually. Okay, so otherwise if it crystallizes, then the whole system will stop functioning. So now once again I will go back to the some finishing slides. Okay, so yeah, it is half effect system. You will be surprised to know, till now we were talking about such heat sources where the temperature is about 100 degrees Celsius, 150, or say 200 or 225. See, even if we can go for 4 effect system, 5 effect, 6 effect, 7 effect, the moment temperature range is changing, we can go for higher effect, but that makes the system complicated. But now this is a different system. Now suppose you have a geothermal energy source where the temperature is somewhere around 60 to 70. Would you not like to use the heat actually? Yes, you would like to use the heat because it is available to us. So then I will go for a half effect system. Half effect is, you can see this system here. Actually, why I am saying half effect? Because in this particular case, first of all, the temperature is low. As I have written here, it is 70. It can also function at somewhere around 60 degrees Celsius. So same temperature, there are two generators. One is LP generator, means low pressure generator. This is high pressure generator. This is high pressure absorber. This is low pressure absorber. So there are two absorbers, two generators here and here. High pressure generator, low pressure generator. High pressure absorber, low pressure absorber. And in between we have pump, solution throttle valve, solution heat exchanger. Okay. And then here, this is the refrigerant circuit only. Why I am saying half effect? Because in comparison to a single effect system, the value of COP is about 0.4. So half effect means now the COP has reduced actually. That is why we are calling it as a half effect. So these are some of the graphs. I will not like discuss because there is not much time left. But yes, I would like to show this. We can also couple a compressor in a absorption system. So you can see we have a absorption system on the right hand side, and in it we have included a compressor also. So it becomes a compression absorption refrigeration system. Such types of system, the research is going on in US and in many other European countries, and they have very good potential in terms of COP. So you can see what is the value of COP in such cases. But this COP depends upon the weak solution concentration also. So you can see what is the value of COP. The maximum COP is going somewhere around 7.5, even higher than that of a vapor compression system, theoretically speaking. Actually, it may be less, but theoretically, in case of vapor compression, it may go up to 4 or 5. So here it is even more than that. Okay. Then this is generator absorber absorption system. So GACS, vapor absorption system. GACS. Now, what is this term actually known as GACS? GACS stands for generator absorber heat exchange. What is it? Generator absorber heat exchange. And this type of system is only applicable for ammonia and water. Why ammonia and water? I will let you know. See, at many places, I have told you, see, you cannot have pure ammonia which goes into the condenser and passes through the evaporator. So what exactly happens in the evaporator is there is it's not a isothermal evaporation, rather it is evaporation which is taking place at number of temperatures. Okay, and then it goes into the absorber also. Okay, when it goes into the absorber, we have uh, once again it's a solution. At the entry to the absorber, the temperature will be different than the temperature which is leaving the absorber here. Okay, so what will happen, we would like to utilize this temperature difference which has been created because of non isothermal behavior of this ammonia water actually. So it's a non isothermal behavior which we are trying to utilize. So what we have here is we have a gas desorber, we have a generator here, we have a gas absorber, generator absorber heat exchanger. So here, if you will see, here we are rejecting the heat from the absorber, but now this temperature is lower temperature, this is low temperature. Say here the temperature is 40 degree, but here we have the ammonia vapor, here we have the ammonia liquid which is leaving. So there could be a part of the absorber where the temperature could be say 100 degrees Celsius because of the non isothermal behavior. And what we require in generator, I require heat in the generator to generate the refrigerant. So here in the generator, yes, we are supplying heat, but this heat, this is a gas desorber. So I am supplying heat from this generator section to this from this absorber section to this generator section actually, or desorber section. So that is how we are transferring this absorber heat, which actually was to be um, uh, thrown out to the surroundings to the generator of the desorber section. Okay, so that is how we are utilizing this heat, and here we can have higher value of the COP. And here in this particular system we can also install a compressor, and by installing a compressor the COP increases even more. So this is the last slide, and here you can see, uh, if I show you the red line or the this green line, I will have to check what is the uh, exact values here. It is 5 degrees Celsius, so the values are -5 actually, because ammonia water system can go for lower temperature limit. So that is why the value of COP is lower. The moment this is actually, yeah, this is actually the temperature -5, and this is -5 degrees Celsius. And then when we go for 0 degrees Celsius, the COP increases. When I go for 5 degrees Celsius evaporated temperature, it even increases. So you can see for ammonia water, if there is no gas, the value of COP is somewhere around 0.7, whereas if I go for higher evaporated temperature, it increases to 0.9 also because of gas reason. And if I am employing the compressor also, then the COP increases even more. Okay, and there are some graphs I have taken it from some research paper. So there must be some other values which are applicable to this section and this section. Actually, they may be for different values of pressure ratio across the compressor. So that's all which I wanted to tell you. So here I would like to say thank you for patient hearing me. I have taken 1.5 hours, which was the duration given to me, and I have tried to cover many things, starting from simple cycles, which you study at BTech level, and then I have gone to single effect, double effect, triple effect, series flow, parallel flow, hybrid systems, gas systems. That is what I have covered, and I have told you what could be the range of the COPs and when we should use a particular type of the system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, Dr. Akhilesh Arora ji. Very exhaustive and very informative session.